A strong force that permeated through the world, known as astral powers wielded by astral mages. For years, a great war has raged between the scientifically sophisticated Empire and Nebulous, the realm of magical girls. After committing a serious crime, the Empire's strongest knight, Iska, is sent to prison after releasing an imprisoned witch. A year later, the Empire's leadership lets him go with the condition that he hunts down a terrifying witch, known as the Ice Calamity Witch. Iska accepts in hopes of stopping the war. Alice, the Ice Calamity Witch, wishes for peace as well and is willing to do everything she can to bring down the Empire. This epic confrontation sets the stage for a catastrophic showdown between the two young combatants, Iska, an imperial swordsman, and Alice, a witch princess. Despite the fact that they are sworn enemies who pledge to cut each other down in order to unite their worlds, Iska is captivated by the witch's princess's beauty and dignity, while Alice is moved by his strength and resolve. They have no choice but to annihilate each other or to find another way in the midst of an endless war that prevents them from being together. In the beginning, we find Iska imprisoned. A year before, he had freed an imprisoned witch. It's mentioned that in the history of the Empire, he is the youngest in the history of the Empire to be proclaimed the title of the Saint Disciple. Due to the crime he committed, his title was demoted. The Octet grants him his release and his astral swords, with the condition that he will hunt down a purebred witch. After rejoining with his 907th unit colleagues Jin, Nini, and Mismis, the four of them travel to a contested zone where the Empire is protecting a power plant from the Nebulous Sovereignty's astral mages. Iska and his troop are soon engaged in combat with many magicians, which they manage to subdue non-lethally. However, Alice, a purebred Ice Calamity Witch, takes the field and uses her powers to demolish the Empire's power plant. Before Alice flees, Alice and Iska battle to a draw, with both expressing their desire to put an end to the continuous struggle. Later, Alice and her maid Rin are at an opera when a man who hands her a handkerchief turns out to be Iska. After what had transpired during Iska's mission and his confrontation with Alice, he has been having trouble sleeping. In the neutral city of Ain, Iska gets a ticket from his captain to go see an opera. There he accidentally gets seated near Alice. Later that night, both Iska and Alice find themselves in the same restaurant and ordering the exact same dish. When the two went about their evening, looking back at the events that had transpired earlier, both couldn't sleep, just thinking of each other, proceeding to a scene where Iska dreams of a younger version of himself after a train accident, fending off dinosaur-like creatures, coming across a younger girl resembling Alice, using her ice powers in order to fend off the dinosaur creatures. The next day, during a training session, we learn that Risya, the Special Defense for Humankind's HQ's council, will be leading Unit 907, or otherwise known as the Mismis Unit. Iska gets offered a ticket to an art exhibition. We then cut to a scene where Alice's mother explains the founder, who had a sister which her family's royal bloodline. The Empire never knew that the Grand Witch had a sister, hence why they rejoiced over the Grand Witch's death when Nebulous passed away. The founder is stuck in a crystallized ceiling. Her binds started to loosen when Alice fought with Iska in the forest. We then discover that astral power weakens when the host is in danger. The next day, Iska and Alice meet again in the neutral city Ain, where the art exhibit that Iska got tickets for is held. Afterwards, Iska falls asleep on Alice's soldier. Meanwhile, the Octet agrees to reinstate Iska as Saint Disciple if he captures the Ice Calamity Witch. Lord Mask appears with kissing when Alice and Rin arrive at the Vortex. Lord Mask explains that he wants to fight the Empire in a full-fledged battle. Meanwhile, the 907th unit is keeping an eye on the Muldol Valley when an astral light appears. As they approach the light, they come across Shenoret Gregory's troop, who disclose that they are astral magicians. Nameless appear out of nowhere and annihilates Sharonet's group. However, she gets to flee with Mismis. When Sharonet transports Mismis to the Vortex, Alice takes advantage of the chance to travel to the Imperial Army's headquarters. Iska eventually arrives in the Vortex to save Mismis. Kissing then shows off her strength. Alice battles Nameless at the base. Iska and Kissing fight it out at the Vortex, with Iska emerging victorious. Lord Mask then kicks Mismis into the Vortex. Alice follows Iska into the water to save her. All three are able to survive thanks to Alice's assistance. Later, Rissia introduces herself to Salinger. Rissia informs Salinger that she will assist him in escaping. Meanwhile, Rin informs Alice at the hotel that someone has penetrated the sovereignty. When Mismis, Jin, and Nene arrive at the Alugan, they are encircled by guards. They subsequently get a call from Rissia, who tells them a fib about the situation. Later, Rin informs Alice that Salinger has escaped from Alugan, and they depart without Iska. Mismis serves as bait at Alugan, allowing Jin and Nene to take out the guards. When they finally contact Iska, he appears to be stranded at the hotel until he realizes Alice has left behind a key that will allow him to leave. After that, he heads to Alugan. Alice and Rin separate when they arrive in Alugan. In the meantime, Iska arrives at Alugan. Rin confronts Salinger and dares him to a battle, but she is defeated. Iska saves Rin just before Salinger is about to kill her. Rissia meets with Emperor Yunmilgen and presents him with a report. The Queen directs Sispel to travel to Askmira, an autonomous country, to see if they have sided with the Empire. Meanwhile, the 907th Unit is given a respite when Mekala, a member of the medical coordination team, orders them to take a 60-day forced leave owing to overwork. Later, Lord Mask speaks with Elatir, Alice, and Sispel's older sister. The 907th Unit spends their first day in Askmira having fun. Sispel runs into Iska after they part, and she decides to pursue him. The Queen, Alice, and Rin return to the palace and goes to Sispel's room. There, Alice and Rin learn that Sispel is aware of Iska, and Sispel invites Iska to join her at the Sovereignty. Sispel expresses gratitude to Iska for saving her the previous year. She becomes tearful as she asks why she wants him to accompany her to the Sovereignty. Sispel swears she will not give up if they part ways. Meanwhile, Rin persuades the Queen to allow Alice to travel to Askmira alone in order to speak with Sispel. The Octet decides to use the object against Sispel at the Empire. The next day, Iska is too obsessed with his talk with Sispel to function. Meanwhile, Elatir informs Lord Mask that she fears her sisters may betray the Sovereignty. As a result, Lord Mask agrees to investigate the situation. Alice discovers enormous tracks heading in the same way as she travels to Askmira. Later, Iska departs from his friends to meet Sispel. Lord Mask confronts them after she exposes the reason for her request for his assistance. Sispel is pursued by the object when she tries to run. Lord Mask tries to intervene while Iska and Nene combat the object, but it is stopped by Jin. Lord Mask is distracted by Jin and Mismis, but they are cornered. Jin manages to hit Lord Mask with a bullet, but he misses the recorder with proof of Sispel's communication with Iska. Lord Mask then attempts to burn them with gasoline, but Mismis uses her astral talents to put out the fires as Jin fires a shot at Lord Mask, forcing him to flee. Nene meanwhile tries to attack the object, but it defends itself. While Iska and Sispel combat the object, Nene and the rest of the crew flee to evacuate civilians. An astral entity appears during the combat and confines Sispel inside. Suddenly, Alice appears, prompting Iska and her to reunite. Sispel inquires after the fight if Alice and Iska are acquainted, which they deny. Sispel then expresses her desire for Iska to be her knight. When his pals call for him, Iska manages to get out of the situation.